Welcome to the Brigham Young University Family History Library webinar series. My name is Braden Knudsen. I'll be your host for this webinar today. We'd like to thank everybody for joining us. As we get going here with our announcements, we'd like to invite you to participate in the polls that we have on the screen. We'd love to know how you heard about today's webinar and where you're listening from. It's really neat to see where everybody logs in from and joins us as we do this webinar series. So our next webinar will be on Wednesday, March 21st at 5 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time because the daylight savings will have changed by then. And that is titled What's New with the Family History Guide by Bob Taylor. And that'll be a good one. They always are innovating and trying new things, so it'll be a good webinar to come and see what's going on over at the Family History Guide. And if you haven't ever heard of the Family History Guide, we do have a few webinars on our YouTube webinar recordings on our YouTube channel that you can go back and watch and get an idea of what they have to offer, and this will be a great way to see what's new over there. And really quick here, we're going to flip over to our website because we have this a new, I guess you could say, viewing platform to allow people to watch our YouTube videos when they are at when you're at your local ward or Family History Center. We've been getting some emails that people have had those sites blocked and the YouTube blocked when they're at those buildings. So we made this here so you could watch the videos while you're at those locations and not have to worry about it. We're still in the process of improving these pages, but you can see that we have the videos here, and we don't have a ton of videos yet, but you're welcome to send us an email and let us know which videos you need, and we'd be more than happy to get those uploaded as soon as we can. That's what's new, and trying to make that available for everybody and allow those videos to be used in a teaching setting at your Family History Center or your ward family history classes. That would be awesome. And as always, if you ever have any questions or comments, feel free to email us at fhl_webinars@byu.edu, and we'll always do our best to make these webinars as helpful as possible. So today we'll be pleased to hear from Kathryn Grant, who will be giving a presentation titled Got My Eyes on You Using the Watch Feature in Family Tree. After years on the sidelines, Kathryn started doing family history and discovered a new passion. Her specialty is mentoring new family historians and helping them find success, and maybe even avoid some of the mistakes she's made. Kathryn teaches Sunday classes at the BYU Family History Library. She also presents at Riverton Saturday seminars and other family history events. Her column on family history ran in the Nauvoo Times for about a year and is still available online. Kathryn works for the LDS Church as a technical writer with a focus on usability and process improvement. Besides family history, she loves uplifting music, thought-provoking books, and homemade guacamole. And as we turn the time over to Kathryn, we'll just remind everybody really fast about our comments and questions box on your right-hand side of the screen. Feel free to write in with any questions, and we'll make sure that everything gets answered by the end of the presentation. And Kathryn, whenever you're ready, feel free to take it away.
Okay, Braden, thank you so much. And everybody, thank you for joining us today. It's so good to have you with us. As Braden mentioned, we are going to be talking about using the watch feature in Family Tree. So as is customary, let's take a quick look at what we'll be covering in today's webinar. First of all, what is the watch feature? Make sure we're all on the same page with that. Then why do we need it? How do I set or remove a watch? Then I set a watch, now what happens? Then we'll talk about using the watch list, and finally, we'll talk about setting your watch notification preferences. So let's get started. What is the watch feature? In a nutshell, the watch feature is a function on Family Tree that notifies you of changes to a person in Family Tree. So if you can envision with me the person page in Family Tree, it includes these sections, and I won't take time to read through all of them. Well, actually, one of them, relationships, is not a section, but everything else is a section. So anytime somebody makes a change to any of those sections or to relationships, you will be notified if you've set a watch on the person. Now, there's a couple of things that aren't included. You might have noticed that recently, and when I say recently, gosh, it's probably been the last 3 or 4 months, I want to say, that Family Search added labels to the Family Tree person page. When those labels are changed, you do not get notified. And then also ordinance changes are you're not notified. So if anybody does an ordinance or reserves an ordinance or so forth, you're not notified when you set a watch on the person for that. So why do we need the watch feature? What's the benefit of having it? To understand that, it's important to remember that Family Tree is a shared tree. There isn't any my tree or your tree. We're all working on the same tree, and that's a different concept for a lot of people to grasp just because most websites don't work that way. So for instance, if you're on Ancestry, if you've got a personal tree on Ancestry or MyHeritage or Find My Past, you completely control that tree. You control who's put on it, you control who sees it, you control who changes it. But in Family Tree, we've got a shared tree that all of us are working on together, and that was really necessary because it's one of the main purposes is temple work. And you can imagine that if everybody had their separate trees to track temple work, that would just be a mess. It just wouldn't work. So Family Tree is open edit, which means that any user can change anything. And that is really powerful. If you remember back to the old days of, quote, new Family Search, when we couldn't correct anything, it just got so the person page could have lists and lists of what they called opinions. So you never could correct anything, you could just add information. And so many people were unhappy about that and wanted to be able to correct things. So Family Search listened to us and they made Family Tree open edit. Now, there's of course a downside. There's always pluses and minuses to everything, right? So this is a very powerful way to crowdsource a pedigree, but we're all human and mistakes happen. And that points us to the benefits of having a watch feature. So the first benefit, as we've just implied, means that you can learn about and fix incorrect changes close to the time that they happen. But you know what? There's some other benefits of watching that sometimes we don't think as much about. For instance, you can learn about good changes. What if somebody added some new vital information that you had not known about? Wouldn't you like to know about that? Or maybe they found a great source. That would also be a good thing to know. Along with that, a benefit of watching is that you can easily know who else is working on your lines. And who knows, maybe you'll find a long lost cousin or a friend that you can start collaborating with. And that's one of the key purposes of Family Tree is to allow us to collaborate on our family research. So how do I set or remove a watch? It's delightfully easy. To set a watch, you just go to the person page of the person that you want to watch, and you click this button right here, the watch button. When you do, the star fills in and the text changes to unwatch. So that now if you want to remove that person from being watched, you just click unwatch and it goes back to the way it was. So great, that was easy. I set a watch, now what happens? Well, there's basically 3 things that will happen when you set a watch. The first one is that that person gets added to your watch list, and we'll talk a little bit more in detail about the watch list in just a couple of minutes. The second thing that happens is that you're going to get a weekly email notification, and I've got a sample here on the screen. It's basically just a list that is sent to your default email that's in your preferences, and this list will list all the changes that were made in the past week, who they were made to, and who made them. So this is a very useful way to be notified of what's going on with people that you're particularly interested in Family Tree. And then the third thing is that a watch message gets put in a couple of places on the person page. For example, it gets put in the vital information section. It also gets put in the other information section. So let's take a closer look. That's a little bit small. I'm going to blow it up here. But you can see that it says one user of Family Tree is watching this person. Well, it says are, but should have said is, right? One user is watching this person. If you change the information, these users will be notified. And a huge advantage of that actually is that they found it's a deterrent to people making random changes. It causes people to think twice. You know, if somebody's watching this and they're going to be notified if I make a change, then I probably better be sure that I'm making a valid change. There's a couple of things to be aware of. This count here of however many users includes you if you're watching. So on here I see that there's one user watching this person and I know that I'm watching them. So that actually tells me that nobody else is watching this person. If it had said two users, I would know that it was me and someone else. That raises the question, can I tell who these other users are that are watching? That a lot of people ask that, and the answer is right now you can't see the names of the other watchers. But you can kind of surmise who they are by looking in the changelog and seeing who's been working on the tree or working on that person, I should say. So how do we use the watch list? Once we've put somebody on it, what are some of the things that we can do? So first of all, let's talk about how we access the watch list, and that's also super easy. Anytime you're in Family Tree, on almost any page, you're going to see this submenu, and you just click Lists, and you'll see a page like the one that we're looking at here. This page has got two tabs to it, two options. The first one is People I'm Watching, and just like it sounds, it's basically a list of everybody that you're watching. On this page, you can do a couple of things. One is that you can click any name to display the summary card, so you can see quick information about that person, and you can also even navigate to that person. So for instance, if I were to click Jane's name right here or click person, I would be taken to her person page. Now you might want to do that without leaving the watch list, and there's an easy way to do that if you want to. If you're on a PC, you would hold down the Control key and click the name or person. If you're on a Mac, you would hold down the Command key and click the same thing. And that would open the person page in another browser tab. From this page, you can also easily unwatch anybody. So suppose that you came to your page and you saw, oh my goodness, I've got so many people on here and I'm kind of done with, these 5 people. You would just very quickly click unwatch for all those people and they would be removed from your watch list. The second tab shows changes to people I'm watching. As you can imagine, if it showed all changes from the beginning of Family Tree, that could get really just full, very full. And so they've limited it to show the last 30 days of changes. And the oldest changes will gradually drop off the list as they become older than 30 days. Now this page shows changes that everybody has made. So it not only shows changes from other people, but it shows changes from you. Sometimes that's a good thing. You might want to see your changes, but sometimes you might not. And so you can click this button here to hide the changes that you've made. And as you see, it filters out everything I've made, every change I've made, and it just shows me the changes made by other people. The other thing that's unique on the Changes to People I'm Watching tab is that it shows the person who made the change. Now, usually in Family Tree, when you see a username, you can click on it to send a person a message. And unfortunately, that's not the case on the watch list. But it's very easy to go back to the person page, go into the changelog, which you get to by clicking Show All Changes on the right side. And so if you go on into the Show All Changes from the person page, you see the changes that were made and the links there for the username are clickable. And so you can send that person a message. Now there's a couple of things that you can do on both tabs on the watch list. One of those is filtering, and I love this because especially if you've got a long watch list, you can very quickly type something In the filter box, type a surname, for example, as is shown here, and then you will only see in the list below people that have that surname. And so again, that works on people I'm watching, and it also works on changes to people I'm watching. The other thing that you can do that is really helpful, especially with a long watch list, is that you can sort. And there's two types of sorting on the watch list. If you see this button here with an arrow on the right-hand side, then you can click that to see a list of options, and you can sort by any of those options. You notice over here on Vitals, it's got the same drop-down arrow, so you could click that to see a list of options there as well. But some buttons don't have that drop-down arrow on the right-hand side. That means that they are just toggle buttons, so they will either go ascending or descending. Or in terms of dates, that would be newest to oldest or oldest to newest. So when I click it one time, it's going to go one direction, and then if I click it again, it's going to go the other direction. You can see here it's going newest to oldest. So if I were to click this again, it would then go oldest to newest. Finally, let's talk about setting watch notification preferences. By default, you will be notified each week when changes are made. You'll just get that weekly email with a list of changes. Now, what if you didn't want those changes? I've got a couple of friends who have really long watch lists, and they look at those lists regularly, so it's not really helpful to them to get the email. They would rather just go into their watch list periodically and maybe avoid the clutter in their email. So the way you do that is you go to pretty much any family tree page and you click your name. After you click your name, you get this drop down, and one of the options is Settings. So you click Settings. And then when you do, you get these options across the top of the page, and you want to click Notifications. And then you get the page that we're looking at here, and here's the checkbox with weekly updates to ancestors I'm watching. If you decide you do not want those weekly email updates, then you just uncheck the checkbox. And then obviously if you ever decided that you wanted them again, you would come back in here the same way and check the checkbox. So that brings us to the end of our short webinar today. Just to summarize what we talked about the watch feature and its benefits. We talked about how easy it is to set or remove a watch just by clicking the star on the person page. We talked about the three things that happen when you set a watch, which is that the person's added to the watch list, you get an email notification by default, and also a notice is placed on the person page in the vital information and the other information sections. We talked about how to use the watch list with filtering and sorting, seeing the summary card and so forth. And then finally, we talked about how easy it is to set your watch notification preferences. It's just that single checkbox in your settings on Family Tree. So that brings us to the end of our webinar, and thank you so much for being here today. Braden, do we have any questions?
At the moment, we don't. We would like to thank Kathryn for all of her effort, and we know this webinar is pretty short and it's kind of a simple subject, but there are quite a few of us that may not know how to use this feature, so we'd love to answer any questions. If you have any, please feel free to write those in as we finish up here. Did you have anything else to add,
No,
Kathryn?
that's it for me today, Braden. Thank you.
All right. We'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. We'd love to hear some of your feedback before you leave. Let us know what you thought about today's webinar and what we can do to improve our webinar series as a whole. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on our social media so you can stay up to date on what's going on here at the BYU Family History Library. We have over 300 videos, recorded videos on our YouTube channel that can help you in your research. So we encourage you to go peruse those videos and see if there's anything else that you can learn from us. And we hope to see you next time. Have a great weekend.